Hey dreamers, thank you for taking the time to listen to this. Please share any thoughts in the comments section below. And if you don't want to miss any future sleep stories or sleep story compilations, then you can subscribe and turn on bell notifications. Now it's time to drift peacefully into slumberland. Beauty and the Beast, a modern day retelling. Episode 1. A Chance Encounter. Isabella, Bella Hart's world was woven from the threads of the everyday and the fabric of dreams. Working in her family's quaint London bookstore, she found herself lost in the tales of knights and dragons, lovers and poets. With each page, she travelled to places that felt more real than the mundane world outside. The Hart bookstore was a charming space, filled with the musk of aged paper and the hum of quiet conversations. Regular customers sought solace among the rows of books, guided by Bella's recommendations. Her friends, Emily and Lucy, often stopped by, teasing Bella about her head-in-the-clouds attitude, especially when it came to romance. "Bella, you need to put down Pride and Prejudice and find yourself a real Mr. Darcy," Lucy would say, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Bella would laugh and wave her hand dismissively. "Real life never quite lives up to the stories, Lucy." Her life in London was routine but comfortable. She loved her work at the bookstore, and her friends were her anchor. But in her quiet moments, she couldn't help but yearn for something more, something that would sweep her off her feet and into the arms of adventure. Her father, Dr. James Hart, was her connection to that longing, a widowed scientist with a penchant for ancient ruins and historical mysteries. Dr. Hart filled Bella's childhood with stories of his travels. They shared a close bond, their conversations filled with enthusiasm and mutual respect. But ever since Bella's mother passed away, Dr. Hart had immersed himself deeper into his work, often spending weeks away on research trips. Bella's heart ached for the loss of her mother, and she wished her father would find joy again. She knew, though, that his love for science was his way of keeping the grief at bay. One rainy afternoon, as Bella was arranging a display of the latest romantic novels, a letter arrived. The elegant handwriting caught her eye, and she felt a thrill of excitement as she opened it. The letter was an invitation from Gregory Adams, the reclusive business tycoon known for his mysterious Braemorn Castle in Scotland. He had heard of Dr. Hart's expertise and wished to engage him in an exploration of ancient ruins within his vast estate. Bella's heart leaped at the prospect. Here was the adventure she'd been longing for. With trembling hands, she called her father, her voice bubbling with enthusiasm. "Father, you have to accept this invitation. Think of what you might discover," she urged. Dr. Hart was more hesitant, his voice tempered with caution. "It's a generous offer, Bella, but this Mr. Adams has a reputation for being rather difficult." But Bella's excitement was contagious, and she knew her father's curiosity was piqued. They agreed to a virtual meeting with Mr. Adams. In the days leading up to the meeting, Bella couldn't shake her curiosity about Gregory Adams, known as a beast in business. His public image was one of stern authority, but there were whispers of a deeper story, of a man scarred by his past, both physically and emotionally. Bella found herself drawn to the enigma of Mr. Adams, feeling a connection she couldn't explain. She even began to dream about Bremoran Castle. Its tall towers wrapped in mist, a mysterious figure waiting in the shadows. The world around her seemed to fade as the date of the meeting approached. Her mind filled with thoughts of adventure, discovery, and the mystery of a man known to the world as a beast. As she looked out at the grey London sky, Bella knew that something extraordinary was on the horizon, something that would change her life forever. The day of the meeting dawned, and Bella's excitement mingled with a sense of trepidation. The decision to join her father in the virtual conference with Gregory Adams was not taken lightly. Both Emily and Lucy had weighed in with their opinions over coffee the day before. "I've heard he's ruthless," Emily said, her brows furrowing. "And those scars on his face, what do you think happened?" Lucy's eyes twinkled. "Maybe he's a secret prince under a curse, waiting for a fair maiden to break the spell." They all laughed. But Bella felt a strange pull towards the mystery that was Mr. Adams. His reputation for being a beast in business, the stories of his reclusiveness, and the allure of the castle in Scotland all intrigued her. Her father's excitement was palpable too. The prospect of exploring ancient ruins, the promise of undiscovered artifacts, had awakened a spark in him that Bella hadn't seen in years. She could see the twinkle in his eyes, the energy in his voice as he prepared for the meeting. They set up the conference call in her father's cluttered study, filled with maps, books, and artifacts from his previous expeditions. Bella's heart pounded as the time drew near, her palms slightly damp. "Are you ready, Bella?" her father asked, looking at her with concern. "You don't have to be here if you're uncomfortable." Bella shook her head, determination setting in. "I want to be here, father. This feels important." Finally, the screen blinked to life, and there he was, Gregory Adams. The image was a bit grainy, but Bella could make out his strong jawline, intense eyes, and the scars that marked his face. He was intimidating, yet there was something in his eyes, a depth that intrigued her. "Dr. Hart, Miss Hart, thank you for accepting my invitation." Gregory's voice was deep, resonating with authority, but also tinged with a courteous tone. The meeting went on, mostly between Dr. Hart and Gregory, discussing the details of the exploration, the possibilities and the logistics. Bella found herself watching Gregory, taking in his measured responses, the way he seemed to weigh each word before speaking. There was an elegance to him, a grace that belied his reputation. As the conversation progressed, Bella's father expressed his ideas passionately, his eyes alive with excitement. Gregory seemed to be drawn in, his gaze fixed on Dr. Hart, nodding appreciatively. Bella felt a warmth growing in her chest, grateful for this opportunity that seemed to breathe life into her father. At one point, Gregory's eyes shifted to Bella, and their gazes locked. Time seemed to stand still. In that moment, Bella felt a connection, a pull she couldn't explain. Gregory's eyes softened and a small smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "I must thank you as well, Miss Hart," he said, his voice softer. "I understand you share your father's passion for history. I hope you find the discoveries at Bremoran Castle as intriguing as he does." Bella's cheeks flushed, but she met his gaze, replying, "I'm sure I will, Mr. Adams. Your estate sounds enchanting." The meeting concluded with a sense of mutual respect and anticipation. Plans were set in motion, and as the screen went dark, Bella sat back, her mind reeling. What was this connection she felt with Gregory Adams? Was it simply the romance of the unknown, the thrill of adventure, or something deeper? Her father's joyous laughter broke her reverie. "Bella, my dear, we're off to Scotland. Can you believe it?" His happiness was infectious, and Bella hugged him tightly. But as they celebrated, her thoughts kept drifting back to the mysterious Mr. Adams, the beast of Bremoran Castle. Her dreams that night were filled with images of a castle shrouded in mist, of a man with intense eyes and a secret smile, of a dance that never ended. The following days were a whirlwind of preparation and excitement. Dr. Hart immersed himself in research, gathering materials and liaising with experts in Scotland. Bella was by his side, aiding him, yet often finding herself lost in thoughts of the upcoming adventure. She shared her feelings with Emily and Lucy over dinner one evening. They'd gathered at their favourite local pub, the table laden with comfort food and the air filled with laughter. "I can't help but be fascinated by him," Bella confessed, her eyes downcast as she played with the edge of her napkin. "Mr. Adams, I mean." Lucy grinned. "Our Bella's smitten by the beast." Bella blushed but didn't deny it. "I don't know about smitten, but there's something about him, a connection." Emily's eyes softened. "It's the mystery, isn't it? The unknown and the castle. It all sounds so romantic." Bella smiled, appreciating their understanding. "It does, doesn't it? I keep thinking about it, dreaming about what we might find and about Mr. Adams himself." They chatted late into the night, their conversation a mixture of excitement, anticipation, and friendly teasing. As Bella made her way home, she couldn't shake the feeling that something significant awaited her in Scotland. Back at home, she found her father poring over maps of the Galloway forest, his eyes alight with passion. She adored this side of him, the explorer, the seeker of knowledge. "Bella, look at this," he exclaimed, pointing at a spot on the map. An ancient druidic site untouched for centuries. The The possibilities are endless. She joined him, caught up in his enthusiasm. It's incredible, Father. We could make groundbreaking discoveries. They worked late, planning, discussing, their excitement palpable. Yet as they said good night, Bella noticed something in her father's eyes, a shadow, a hint of worry. Is something wrong, Father? She asked, concern in her voice. He hesitated, then shook his head, forcing a smile. No, no, my dear, just the usual pre-expedition jitters. But Bella knew her father, and she sensed an unspoken fear, something he wasn't sharing with her. She kissed his cheek and went to bed, a nagging worry settling in her chest. The dreams came again that night, more vivid this time. The castle, grand and imposing, stood in the heart of the forest. She wandered through its corridors, the scent of old books and the sound of haunting melodies filling the air. She found herself in a grand ballroom, the chandeliers aglow with soft light. Gregory was there, his eyes fixed on her, a hand outstretched inviting her to dance. They danced, their bodies moving in perfect harmony, their eyes locked, souls connected. She wanted to ask him about his scars, about his reputation, but the words never came. Instead, he whispered in her ear, his voice tender. You'll understand in time, Bella. She woke with a start, his words echoing in her mind, the connection they shared in the dream still lingering in her heart. The weeks passed quickly, the day of departure nearing, and Bella's excitement was tempered by a growing curiosity about Gregory, the beast of Bramoran Castle. She wanted to know him, to understand the man behind the scars, behind the reputation. The connection she felt was undeniable, but what did it mean? Was it a mere figment of her imagination, fueled by her dreams of romance and adventure? Or was it something real, something destined? As she packed her bags, her thoughts a jumble of anticipation and uncertainty, she knew that the answers awaited her in Scotland. And whether she was ready or not, the adventure was about to begin. The day of departure arrived, crisp and bright. Bella stood on the platform at King's Cross Station, her suitcase at her feet, her heart aflutter with a mix of excitement and anxiety. Beside her, Dr. Hart checked the tickets, his face a mask of scholarly determination. The train to Scotland would leave shortly. Are you ready for this, Bella? Her father asked, looking at her with a warmth that only a parent could muster. She smiled, her eyes shining. More than ready, father. He nodded, patting her arm affectionately. We'll make a great team, as always. The whistle blew, signalling the time to board, and they made their way to their seats, setting in for the long journey north. As the train pulled out of the station, Bella's thoughts turned to the castle, the ruins, and Gregory. Her dream had been so real, his voice so clear, that she couldn't shake the feeling that it held some significance. She spent the next hours reading, her mind wandering through the pages of a romance novel. Yet often drifting back to the mysterious landowner of Bramerang Castle. His image seemed etched in her mind, his presence a haunting melody that she couldn't ignore. The scenery changed as they travelled, the urban landscape giving way to rolling hills and dense forests. Bella's heart raced as they crossed the border into Scotland, the land of legends and myths, the land that held the answers to her questions. Her father was immersed in his research, scribbling notes, his eyes alight with anticipation. She admired his passion, his dedication to his work. It was a trait they shared, this love for knowledge, for discovery. Yet her thoughts kept drifting back to Gregory. Who was he really? What lay behind the scars, the harsh exterior? Was there truth to the stories? Or was there a misunderstood soul hidden behind the beastly facade? The train rolled on, the hours slipping away, the anticipation growing. They arrived in Dumfries late in the evening, a car waiting to take them to the castle. The drive through the Galloway forest was breathtaking. Towering trees, ancient and wise, lined the winding road. The moon shone brightly, casting an ethereal glow over the landscape. Bella's breath caught in her throat as they approached the castle. It was as she had dreamed, grand and imposing, yet strangely inviting. She could feel its pull, a magnetic force drawing her in. They were greeted by a stern-faced butler who led them to their rooms. The interior of the castle was a blend of antiquity and modernity, the rich history preserved yet adorned with contemporary comforts. Bella's room was spacious and elegantly furnished, the windows offering a stunning view of the forest. She stood there for a moment, taking it all in, her heart filled with a sense of wonder and anticipation. Her father joined her, his face glowing with excitement. "This is it, Bella. Tomorrow we begin our exploration. Who knows what secrets we'll uncover?" She smiled, her mind still on the castle, on Gregory. "I know, Father, it's going to be amazing." Yet, as she lay in bed that night, her thoughts were not on the ruins or the discoveries that awaited them. Her mind was on the enigmatic landowner, the man they were yet to meet. She drifted into sleep, the dreams returning, more vivid, more real. Gregory was there, his eyes soft, his voice gentle, his touch warm. They danced again, their bodies moving in perfect harmony, their souls intertwined. And as they danced, he whispered once more, "You'll understand in time, Bella." She woke with a start, his words echoing in her mind. A strange sense of peace setting over her. The connection was real, she knew it now, and she was ready to explore it, to uncover the truth, to understand the man behind the beast. The morning dawned bright and clear, a crisp air filling the castle. Breakfast was served in a grand dining room, filled with ornate furnishings and paintings that whispered of a rich history. Bella and her father were joined by Gregory's assistant, Mrs. Caldwell, a stern yet kind-hearted woman in her 50s. She briefed them on the day's plans, the exploration of the ruins, and the guidelines they were to follow. As they ate, Bella's eyes were drawn to a portrait hanging on the wall. A young boy, perhaps 13 or 14, strong and confident, his eyes filled with a fiery determination. She recognized him instantly. It was Gregory. He was quite a handsome young man, wasn't he? Mrs. Caldwell remarked, noticing Bella's interest. Bella's cheeks flushed as she nodded, caught, enchanted by the painting. Yes, he was. Her father chuckled, his eyes twinkling. It's not often I see you so taken, Bella. She rolled her eyes playfully. I'm just curious, that's all. Mrs. Caldwell sighed, her eyes distant. Mr. Adams was indeed quite a charmer in his youth, but life has been unkind and he's become a recluse. The scars run deeper than just the physical ones, you see. Bella felt a pang of sympathy, her heart aching for a man she barely knew. She had to meet him, had to understand what had turned him into the so-called beast. After breakfast, they set out for the ruins, guided by Mrs. Caldwell. The ancient site was breathtaking, nestled deep in the forest, untouched by time. Dr. Hart was in his element, his excitement overflowing as they explored. Bella was fascinated too, but her mind kept drifting back to the castle, to Gregory. She couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to him than the stories told. The day wore on, the exploration yielding exciting discoveries. Yet Bella's thoughts were elsewhere. She needed to meet him, to look into his eyes, to understand the connection that seemed to bind them. That evening, as they dined, she mustered the courage to ask, Mrs. Caldwell, do you think I could meet Mr. Adams? I'd very much like to thank him personally for allowing us the opportunity. Mrs. Caldwell looked thoughtful, her eyes narrowing slightly. I can't promise anything, dear. Mr. Adams rarely meets anyone, but I'll see what I can do. Bella smiled, her heart hopeful. Thank you, Mrs. Caldwell. The following morning, the answer came. Gregory had agreed to meet Bella virtually. A video call was set for later that day. Her heart raced as the time approached, her palms sweaty, her mind a whirl of emotions. She sat in the library, the laptop open, the connection ready. And then, there he was. His face appeared on the screen, clearer this time than before, the scars evident, but not as frightening as she'd imagined. His eyes were piercing, deep and knowing. Miss Hart, he said, his voice rich and smooth. I must admit, I'm curious to talk with the woman who's captured my castle's heart. She blushed, taken aback by his words. I'm the one who should be thanking you, Mr. Adams. He smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. Please, call me Gregory. They spoke for what seemed like hours, the conversation flowing effortlessly. They talked about the castle, the ruins. They shared love for literature, their dreams and hopes. And as they spoke, Bella felt the connection strengthen, the understanding deepen, the mystery unravel. Gregory was not a beast, he was a man, scarred and misunderstood, longing for connection. As they said their goodbyes, Gregory's eyes softened, his voice gentle. You're different, Bella. Don't ever let the world change that. She smiled, her heart full. I won't, Gregory. The connection ended, but the bond remained, a thread that linked them, a promise of something more. And as Bella lay in bed that night, her dreams filled with dancing and laughter, she knew that she'd found something special, a connection beyond explanation, a beauty in the beast. Episode 2. The Forgotten Promise. The castle was alive with the sounds of exploration. Dr. Hart and his team were delving deep into the ruins, their faces flushed with excitement. Mrs. Caldwell's guidance was invaluable, her knowledge of the land enriching their research. Bella, though not a scientist, found herself enthralled by the discoveries. The ruins whispered of a history long forgotten, a story waiting to be told. But it was the evenings she cherished the most, the connection with Gregory deepening with every virtual meeting. They had become friends, sharing dreams and stories, each conversation a step closer to understanding one another. One day, while her father and his team were busy in the field, Bella explored the castle, her mind drifting to Gregory's world before the scars, before the beastly reputation. She found herself in a small chamber filled with artifacts, trophies from Gregory's travels. But one object caught her eye, an old photograph, creased and faded. A younger Gregory stood beside a beautiful woman, their eyes mirroring love. Bella felt a pang of curiosity, a need to know more. Days turned into weeks, the exploration in full swing. Dr. Hart was on the cusp of a significant discovery, a mysterious artifact hidden within the ruins. It was unlike anything he had ever seen, its purpose unknown, its origins baffling. Bella watched her father's excitement grow, his eyes twinkling with the joy of discovery, but she couldn't shake off the photograph's image, Gregory's past haunting her thoughts. Finally, she mustered the courage to ask. "Gregory," she said during one of their virtual meetings, "I found an old photograph in the castle. You were with someone, a woman. Who was she?" Gregory's face paled, his eyes clouding over. He looked away, his voice barely a whisper. "That's a part of my past I'd rather not talk about, Bella." She felt a twinge of guilt, regretting her intrusion. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have asked." He forced a smile, though his eyes remained distant. "It's okay, let's talk about something else." Bella obliged, but the conversation had lost its warmth, a wall built between them. The following morning, disaster struck. Dr. Hart was carefully examining the mysterious artifact, his hands trembling with anticipation. The rest of the team surrounded him, holding their breath. Then, in a horrifying instant, the artifact slipped from his grasp, shattering into pieces on the cold floor. A gasp filled the room, eyes wide, hearts sinking. Bella's father looked devastated, his face ashen, the weight of his mistake crushing him. Mrs. Caldwell was the first to speak, her voice tight. "I must inform Mr. Adams." The words hung heavy in the air, the magnitude of the situation dawning on them. Bella felt her stomach churn, dread setting in. Gregory's reaction was unknown. The broken artifact, a symbol of a trust, shattered. Hours later, Gregory's fury echoed through the castle, his voice a thunderous roar on the speakerphone. How could this happen? That artifact was priceless, unique, it's irreplaceable. Dr. Hart's voice was apologetic, broken. I'm deeply sorry, Mr. Adams. It was an accident. I'll do anything to make amends. Gregory's voice was cold, unforgiving. You'll owe me a favour, Dr. Hart, a favour I'll collect when the time is right. The call ended, and the room plunged into silence. Bella's heart ached for her father, his face etched with guilt, his shoulders slumped in defeat. But deep within, a fear gnawed at her. Gregory's anger, a foreboding sign, the promise of an ominous shadow. A rift had formed, a trust broken, a connection severed. And Bella knew that things would never be the same again. Back in London, the thrill of exploration was overshadowed by Gregory's anger and the ominous promise. Dr. Hart seemed troubled. The sparkle in his eyes dimmed, replaced by a distant worry that gnawed at him. Bella could see her father's distress, his usually lively demeanour dampened by guilt. The house, once filled with joyous tales of discovery, was now silent, the shadow of the broken artifact hanging heavily. Days went by, and the promise lingered, unspoken but ever present. Dr. Hart was consumed by his work, seeking solace in his research, but the joy was gone. Bella's heart ached for her father, and her concern grew with each passing day. But she also couldn't shake off her feelings for Gregory, their connection severed abruptly. His anger had been justified, but his demand for a favour, unspecified and foreboding, had left a chill in her heart. Her friends, noticing her distraction, rallied around her. Emily, always the sensible one, urged Bella to talk to her father, to understand what weighed so heavily on him. Bella dear, you're clearly upset about this, Emily said one afternoon as they shared tea. You need to talk to your father. Open communication is key. Lucy, vivacious and spirited, tried to lift her spirits, planning outings and gatherings. Come on, Bella, let's go out, have some fun, and forget about these troubles for a while. But Bella's mind was elsewhere. Her thoughts entangled in the castle's mystique, Gregory's scars, and her father's burden. Days turned into weeks, and Bella found herself replaying the memories of her virtual meetings with Gregory. The warmth in his voice, the spark in his eyes when he talked about art, and the mysterious allure of his personality all fascinated her. Yet his anger and cold demand had also revealed a different side to him, one that scared and confused her. Who was the real Gregory, and why did she feel such a strong connection to him? Her feelings were a whirlpool, drawing her in, both exciting and terrifying her. Finally, after much contemplation and encouragement from her friends, she decided to confront her father. Dad, she began one evening, her voice gentle, her hands shaking slightly. I can see something's bothering you. Can we talk about it? Dr. Hart looked up, his eyes weary. He sighed, a deep, heavy sigh that spoke of a burden carried too long. Bella, my love, he said, his voice breaking, I've made a terrible mistake. The artifact I broke was of great value, and now I owe Gregory a favour I don't yet understand. Bella reached out, taking her father's hand, her heart swelling with compassion. I know, Dad, but we'll face it together. Whatever the favour is, we'll deal with it. He smiled, a weak, grateful smile, and hugged her tightly. You're my strength, Bella. I don't know what I'd do without you. Bella held her father, tears stinging her eyes. She felt a fierce determination rise within her, a resolve to protect her father from any harm, to face Gregory and whatever awaited them. The following weeks were a blur of routine, the promise lingering in the background, a silent threat. Bella resumed her work at the bookstore, her dreams of adventure replaced by reality's starkness. But her thoughts often drifted to Braemar Castle, the ruins, the secrets, and Gregory. She missed their conversations, the warmth of his voice, the connection that had been growing between them. One evening, a letter arrived, its emblem bearing the seal of Braemar Castle. Bella's heart skipped a beat as she opened it, her hands trembling. It was from Gregory, his words formal, distant. Dear Miss Hart, I've considered the favour that your father owes me. I'll soon be in touch with the details. Yours sincerely, Gregory. The words were like a cold wind, devoid of emotion, a stark contrast to the man she'd been getting to know. Bella felt a pang of loss, a longing for what could have been. Gregory's scars had resurfaced, the businessman taking over the human connection lost. She looked out of the window, the London skyline a grey silhouette, her heart heavy with uncertainty. The promise was no longer a distant threat. It was real, tangible, and it was coming. And Bella knew that they had to be ready. Bella's life had taken a turn since the ominous letter. Gregory's cold tone had instilled a sense of foreboding that had settled into her daily routine. As days continued to turn into weeks, Bella's dreams were filled with various visions of Braemar Castle and Gregory's haunting eyes. Dr. Hart, too, was consumed by his research, revisiting the images and notes from the broken artifact. It was as if he was trying to find redemption through discovery, a way to mend the fracture his mistake had caused. The house was filled with ancient texts, maps, and illustrations, the dining table transformed into a workspace, littered with papers and artifacts from other expeditions. Bella often found her father poring over the broken pieces, his eyes filled with determination and a hint of desperation. One morning, Bella was awakened by a loud exclamation from her father's study. Bella, come here, I've found something. Dr. Hart's voice rang with excitement. Bella, still in her pyjamas, rushed to the study, her heart pounding. Her father's face was flushed, his eyes sparkling. Look at this, Bella, he exclaimed, pointing to an illustration in an ancient manuscript. This symbol matches the one on the broken artifact. It's a clue. a key to something greater. Bella leaned over, examining the symbol. It was indeed identical, a complex pattern of lines and curves forming what seemed like a lock. "What does it mean, Dad?" Bella asked, her curiosity piqued. "It's a part of a legend, Bella," Dr. Hart explained, his voice trembling with excitement. "This symbol is a key to a hidden chamber within the Bremoran castle, a chamber that holds something of great value, something that Gregory doesn't even know about." Bella's heart skipped a beat. A hidden chamber, a treasure. The words seemed to jump straight out of the adventure novels she loved so dearly. "But what could it be?" she asked, her mind racing. "That's what we need to find out," her father replied, his eyes filled with determination. "This could be our redemption, Bella. This discovery could make up for the broken artifact, maybe even satisfy Gregory's demand for a favor." A strange excitement filled Bella's heart. This was more than a mere adventure. It was a chance to right a wrong, to heal a wound that had been festering. As time continued on, Bella and her father worked together, deciphering the clues, tracing the path to the hidden chamber. The connection between father and daughter deepened as they shared this quest, their relationship growing richer, more profound. Bella's friends, too, were caught up in the excitement, offering help, encouragement, and sometimes a much-needed distraction. Emily's rational mind proving invaluable in interpreting some of the more complex clues, while Lucy's enthusiasm and creativity brought joy and energy to the long days of research. As the pieces of the puzzles fell into place, the hidden chamber's location became clear. It was right beneath the castle, a secret room that had been lost to time, waiting to be rediscovered. "I can't believe it," Bella whispered one night, looking at the final map, the path to the chamber marked in red. "We've done it, Dad. We've found the way." "Yes, Bella," her father replied, his voice filled with pride and affection. "We've done it together." The next step was clear. They needed to return to Bremoran Castle, to find the hidden chamber, to uncover its secrets. But the thought of facing Gregory, the cold, calculating businessman who had demanded a favor, weighed heavily on Bella's mind. She couldn't shake off the memory of their connection, the warmth, the understanding that had grown between them. What would he say? What would he do when they arrived? Would the spark still be there, hidden beneath the layers of scars and guarded emotions? As the day of their departure drew near, Bella found herself torn between excitement and trepidation, her heart aching for adventure and longing for a connection that had been severed too soon. She stood by her window, looking out at the London skyline, her mind filled with images of the castle, the ruins, and Gregory's face, both kind and cold. The adventure was calling, the secret waiting to be unveiled, but the path ahead was filled with uncertainty, and Bella knew that she had to face it with courage, strength, and an open heart. For the promise, the favour, and the mystery were more than just a quest. They were a journey into the unknown, a chance to grow, to heal, and to discover what truly lay within her heart. With suitcases packed and the excitement bubbling within her, Bella prepared to set out for Scotland once again. The journey to Braemar Castle was more than just a voyage to a mystical place. It was a path to self-discovery, a chance to reconnect with Gregory, and a mission to unveil an age-old secret. Her father's energy and passion had been rekindled, and Bella couldn't help but be swept up in his enthusiasm. The broken artifact had turned into a beacon of hope, guiding them to a treasure that could potentially mend the fracture between her father and Gregory. Bella's friends gathered to bid her farewell, their faces filled with a mix of excitement and concern. Emily handed Bella a small journal. "For your thoughts and discoveries," she said with a knowing smile. "Who knows what you might uncover?" Lucy hugged Bella tightly, her eyes twinkling with mischief. "Bring back some handsome Scottish lads, would you?" They all laughed, and Bella's heart swelled with gratitude for her friends. Their support, their belief in her quest, had been her anchor. As the train pulled away from the station, Bella settled into her seat, her thoughts drifting to Gregory. The image of his face, the sound of his voice lingered in her mind. She had felt a connection, a pull towards him that was both exciting and unsettling. What would he think of their discovery? Would he welcome them with open arms, or with the cold detachment he had shown in the letter? The questions swirled in her mind, mingling with anticipation and a tinge of fear. Day turned into night, and the landscape outside the train window transformed from the bustling city to the serene countryside, and finally the rugged beauty of Scotland. As Braemar Castle loomed in the distance, Bella's heart pounded in her chest. The castle, with its towering walls and ancient charm, held a piece of her soul. It was a place of mystery, a place where she had felt alive, connected to something greater. She looked over at her father, who was immersed in his notes, his eyes alight with curiosity and determination. They were a team, united in their quest, bound by love and a shared sense of purpose. The castle gates creaked open, and Bella's breath caught in her throat. She was back to the place that awakened something within her. Back to face the man who had touched her heart and then turned away. Gregory was there to greet them, his face inscrutable, his eyes guarded, but Bella saw a flicker of something else, a spark that ignited her hope. "Welcome back, Dr. Hart, Miss Hart," he said, his voice formal yet not entirely cold. "I trust your journey was pleasant." "It was, thank you," Bella replied, her voice steady, her eyes locked on his. "Let's not waste time then," Gregory said, leading them into the castle. "Show me what you've discovered." The evening was filled with explanations, revelations, and a growing sense of wonder. Gregory's stern facade crumbled as he listened to their findings, his eyes widening, his mind opening to the possibility of a hidden treasure. "You've done it," he whispered, looking at the map, his voice filled with awe. "You've found the way." The air in the room was charged with excitement. The three of them bound by the discovery, the adventure that lay ahead. But as the night wore on, Bella found herself drawn to Gregory, watching him as he examined the clues. His face softened by the glow of the candles. She saw the man beneath the scars, the soul behind the guarded eyes. She knew, with a certainty that filled her with both joy and trepidation, that her feelings for him had grown, blossomed into something deeper, something that transcended mere attraction. The adventure had just begun. The secret chamber was waiting to be unveiled, and Bella's heart was on the verge of revealing its own hidden treasure. The journey to Bremoran Castle had turned into a voyage of love, a path that was both thrilling and terrifying. But Bella knew she had to follow it, to explore the depths of her feelings, to face Gregory and herself, to discover the true meaning of the forgotten promise. The dawn of the new day at Bremoran Castle brought with it a sense of urgency and excitement. With the clues in hand and the path laid out, Bella, her father, and Gregory were ready to explore the ancient ruins. Bella's heart raced as they descended into the depths of the castle's hidden chambers, the torchlight flickering on the moss-covered walls. The scent of damp earth mingled with the thrill of discovery as they ventured further into the unknown. Gregory led the way, his eyes alive with curiosity and determination. Bella watched him, her feelings for him growing with each step they took together. His intensity, his passion for the mysteries of the past mirrored her own, and she felt her connection with him deepening. They came upon a chamber, the air heavy with the weight of history, the walls adorned with intricate carvings that told a tale of love, loss, and redemption. Bella's eyes were drawn to an ancient tapestry, the threads woven into a story that seemed to speak to her soul. "What is it, Miss Hart?" Gregory asked, his voice gentle, his eyes searching hers. Bella looked at him, her heart aching with a longing she couldn't quite understand. "I feel as though I've been here before," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion, "as if this place is calling to me." Gregory's eyes softened, and he reached out to touch her hand, his fingers warm and reassuring. "Perhaps it's the story," he said, his voice low and tender, "a tale of love that transcends time and space, a promise that binds two souls together." Bella's breath caught in her throat as she looked into Gregory's eyes, the depth of her feelings for him suddenly overwhelming. The way he spoke, the way he looked at her, it was as if he understood her, as if he too felt the pull of the ancient promise. They continued to explore, the chamber revealing its secrets, the clues leading them to a hidden vault filled with treasures from a bygone era. Bella's father was beside himself with joy, his eyes twinkling as he examined the artifacts. But Bella's mind was elsewhere, her thoughts consumed by Gregory, by the way he made her feel, by the love that was blossoming within her. She knew she had to tell him, to open her heart and reveal her true feelings. The evening came, the excitement of the discovery still fresh in their minds, but Bella's heart was heavy with anticipation and fear. She found Gregory in the library, his eyes lost in a book, his face lit by the soft glow of lamplight. "Gregory," she said, her voice catching in her throat, "may I speak with you?" He looked up, his eyes warm and inviting, and Bella's heart soared. This was the moment, the time to reveal her love, to embrace the promise that had bound them together. "Of course, Bella," he said, his voice gentle. "What's on your mind?" Bella took a deep breath. Her eyes locked on his, her soul laid bare. "I think I'm falling in love with you, Gregory," she whispered, her voice filled with emotion. "I've tried to deny it, to push it away, but it's true. I'm falling in love with you." Gregory's eyes widened, his breath catching in his throat, and then he smiled, a smile that reached his eyes and touched Bella's soul. "I love you too, Bella," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I've loved you since the moment I saw you, since the moment I felt your presence in the castle." They embraced, their hearts beating as one, their souls intertwined, bound by a promise that had transcended time and space. The discovery of the ancient ruins had led them to a treasure far greater, a love that was pure, deep, and eternal. The forgotten promise was fulfilled. The love that had been hidden was now revealed, and Bella and Gregory were ready to face the future together, hand in hand, bound by the magic of Braemorang Castle. Episode 3: The Bargain. Bella had never seen her father so distant and perturbed. It was as if a dark cloud had settled over him since his return from Scotland. The once vibrant glint in his eyes had dulled, and he seemed weighed down by an invisible burden. Her heart ached to see him this way, but every attempt to probe him was met with deflection or silence. Her mind kept wandering back to Gregory, the mysterious business tycoon whose presence had resonated with something deep within her. He was a puzzle she yearned to solve, a melody she wanted to play, but could not quite remember. One evening, as Bella tidied her father's cluttered study, her eyes fell upon a journal. Its leather cover was worn, and the lock seemed to beckon her with a silent invitation. Resisting the urge to respect her father's privacy, Bella picked it up and hesitated for a moment, but curiosity and concern overcame her. In the pages of that journal, she discovered the truth behind her father's anguish. Gregory's anger, the shattered artifact, and the ominous promise, all were laid bare in her father's neat handwriting. A chill ran down Bella's spine as she read the words, a terrible bargain that had been struck. Her father had promised a favour to Gregory, a favour that seemed to haunt him, though the exact nature of it remained unclear. Bella's heart pounded with a mixture of anger, shock, and resolve. How could her father keep such a secret from her, and how could Gregory demand such a thing? She felt a strange connection to this distant, scarred man, but this revelation cast a shadow over her perception of him. As the days turned into restless nights, Bella wrestled with the decision. She knew what she had to do. She'd go to Braemorang Castle and fulfill the promise herself. Her father had suffered enough, and it was her turn to shoulder the responsibility. When she finally confronted her father about her decision, he was taken aback, his face pale and his eyes wide with surprise and concern. "Bella, my dear, you can't," he stammered, his voice trembling. "It's my burden, not yours." But Bella was resolute. "Father, you've done enough. I'll go to Braemorang Castle and meet Gregory. I'll see what he wants and find a way to make things right." Tears welled in her father's eyes as he embraced her, his voice catching in his throat. "You're so brave, Bella, But promise me you'll be careful. Gregory is not what he seems." Bella hugged him tightly, her mind filled with determination. "I'll be fine, Father. I'll handle this." As Bella prepared for her journey, she found herself both excited and apprehensive. Braemar Castle was a place of legend and enchantment, and Gregory was an enigma wrapped in a riddle. She could not shake the feeling that there was more to him than met the eye, and their last meeting, they'd shared their growing love and affection for each other. The journey was long, but Bella's mind was alive with anticipation. The rolling hills and lush landscapes of Scotland embraced her as she drew closer to Braemar Castle. Her heart fluttered at the thought of meeting with Gregory again. The chemistry between them, a flame that refused to be extinguished. But as the imposing silhouette of Braemar Castle loomed on the horizon, a shiver ran down Bella's spine. She didn't know what to expect. Bella and her father had hoped that uncovering the secrets of the artifact and finding the secret chamber would have resolved any talk of a favour being owed. Her arrival at the castle was met with a curious blend of warmth and formality. The staff were polite, but their eyes held a hint of caution, as if they were guarding a secret. Bella's heart raced as she was shown to her room, the weight of the unknown pressing down on her. That night, as Bella looked out at the moonlit gardens, she felt a strange connection to the castle, a sense of belonging that was both comforting and unnerving. And in the depths of her soul, she knew that her life was about to change forever. The next morning, Bella woke to the gentle caress of sunlight filtering through the grand windows of her room. The castle was alive with the subtle sounds of life, a blend of whispers and footsteps that seemed to dance along the ancient corridors. After a quick breakfast, she was eager to explore her surroundings and uncover further secrets of Braemar Castle. Guided by one of the staff, Bella wandered through grand hallways adorned with tapestries and paintings, each telling a story of its own. There were rooms filled with relics of a bygone era, libraries brimming with rare books, and chambers filled with musical instruments that seemed to sing of forgotten melodies. But it was the gardens that captured Bella's heart, lush and vibrant. They were a haven of tranquility and beauty, filled with the sweet fragrance of blooming flowers. As she strolled along the winding paths, she could feel the magic of the place enveloping her, a gentle embrace that soothed her soul. In the midst of this enchantment, Bella almost forgot the reason for her visit. Gregory, the man behind the mystery, seemed to fade into the background as the castle itself took centre stage. It was a place of wonder and fascination, a treasure trove of history and art that called to her very essence. But as the day wore on, reality began to creep back in. Bella's mind drifted back to the promise and the burden that had brought her here. A sense of purpose rekindled within her, and she knew that she could not delay the inevitable any longer. She was due to meet with Gregory that evening, in the grand drawing room of the castle. As Bella prepared herself, a whirlwind of emotions engulfed her: excitement, apprehension, curiosity, and a hint of fear all vied for dominance within her. She looked at herself in the mirror, her reflection staring back at her with a mixture of determination and vulnerability. Gregory was an enigma, a man, his reputation both intriguing and intimidating. Their last face-to-face meeting had ignited something within her. Would he still be the same person? What did he truly want from her? Dressed in a simple yet elegant gown, Bella made her way to the drawing room, her heart pounding in her chest. The door creaked open to reveal a room filled with the warm glow of candlelight and the rich scent of polished wood. And there, standing by the fireplace, was Gregory, tall and imposing. He exuded a presence that was both commanding and magnetic. His face, marked by scars and the passage of time, held a stoic expression that betrayed little of what he felt. Bella's breath caught in her throat as their eyes met. The connection she had felt previously returned in an instant, a spark that seemed to transcend the barriers of space and time, that feeling like they had known each other forever, a strange familiarity that defied explanation. "Miss Hart," Gregory said, his voice deep and resonant, "welcome back to Braemar Castle." "Mr. Adams," Bella replied, her voice surprisingly steady. They exchanged formalities, the conversation stilted and careful. Gregory was polite but distant, his words measured and his demeanour guarded. But Bella could see something in his eyes, a glimmer of curiosity, perhaps even vulnerability that belied his stoic facade. As the evening wore on, the ice between them began to melt, replaced by the feelings they'd shared when they last met. They spoke of art, literature, and music. They shared passions, bridging the gap between them. But the promise, the unspoken bargain, hung over them like a shadow, a silent reminder of the reason for Bella's presence. As the night drew to a close, Bella found herself both drawn to and wary of Gregory. He was not as he seemed, and she could feel that there was more to him than met the eye. The castle, too, held its secrets, its enchantment both alluring and mysterious. What lay behind the grandeur and beauty, and what was the true nature of the bargain that had brought her here? With a mixture of nervousness and trepidation, Bella retired to her room, her mind alive with questions and possibilities. The journey had only just begun, and she knew that the path ahead would be filled with twists and turns. But she was ready to uncover the truth, ready to face the unknown, and ready to discover the man behind the myth. The days that followed were a blend of fascination and uncertainty. Bella immersed herself in the wonders of Braemar Castle, allowing its charm to sweep her into a world where time seemed to stand still. Yet, amidst the beauty and enchantment, the undercurrent of her father's unfulfilled promise lingered, adding a layer of complexity to her interactions with Gregory. Gregory, on the other hand, was an ever-present enigma, aloof and guarded. He kept his emotions tightly reined, his thoughts hidden behind a facade of indifference, showing no hint of the emotional connection they previously shared. But Bella's keen observation and intuition sensed the unspoken layers beneath his surface, the glances that lingered a moment too long, the subtle softening of his voice when they spoke or shared interests, and the moments of unguarded honesty that slipped through his carefully constructed barriers. Their time together was filled with careful dance and delicate balance, both trying to navigate the terrain of their unspoken agreement and the growing connection between them. Bella found herself drawn to Gregory, intrigued by his complexity and touched by his hidden vulnerability. She felt a pull towards him, a magnetic attraction that went beyond mere curiosity. In one of their evening conversations, they found themselves in the castle's library, a treasure trove of knowledge and wisdom, surrounded by ancient texts and well-worn volumes. They delved into topics ranging from history and philosophy to art and literature. Their discussion was animated, filled with passion and intellect, a meeting of minds that transcended mere acquaintance. It was during this conversation that Bella began to see the side of Gregory she had seen at her last visit. The formidable businessman, known for his ruthlessness and cunning, revealed glimpses of sensitivity and depth. He spoke of his love for poetry, his appreciation for the beauty of nature, and his longing for something more profound in life. As the night wore on, the barriers between them began to crumble, replaced by a sense of trust and understanding. Gregory's eyes, once cold and guarded, now sparkled with warmth and sincerity. His voice, which had carried a note of detachment, was now tinged with genuine interest and affection. "Bella," he said, leaning closer, his voice soft and earnest, "I want you to know that your presence here means more to me than mere obligation. I feel a connection with you, something I haven't felt in a long time. I've tried to be strong, to hide it since our last meeting, tried to remain professional." Bella's heart skipped a beat, her breath catching in her throat. She looked into Gregory's eyes, seeing the sincerity and longing that lay beneath his words. "I feel it too, Gregory," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of their confession hanging in the air. It was a turning point, a shifting in their relationship, an honesty that marked the beginning of something new. In the days that followed, Bella and Gregory grew closer, their connection deepening and their understanding of each other broadening. They explored the castle together, venturing into hidden chambers and secluded gardens, each discovery bringing them closer to each other and the mysteries of Braemar Castle. Slowly but surely they began to unveil the layers of their personalities, their fears, their dreams and their desires. They spoke of their pasts, the scars they carried, and the lessons they'd learned. They shared their hopes for the future, their visions for a life filled with love, joy and meaning. Yet amidst the growing intimacy, the shadow of the bargain loomed, a silent reminder of the complexity of their situation. What did Gregory truly expect from her? What was the nature of the promise her father had made? And what would happen when the time came to fulfill it? As the questions swirled in Bella's mind, she knew that the answers would not come easy. But she was determined to face them, to unravel the mystery, and to follow her heart no matter where it led. The path was uncertain, the future unclear, but one thing was undeniable. She had found something special in Gregory, something that transcended logic and reason, something that spoke to her soul. With a newfound resolve, Bella embraced the journey, knowing that it was only the beginning of a grand adventure, an adventure that would change her life and redefine her destiny. And as the time continued to tick past, with Bella's stay at Bremoran Castle beginning to feel like a beautiful dream, the castle with its soaring turrets, hidden chambers and lush gardens seemed to come alive with magic and wonder. Bella explored its depths, each corner revealing a new secret, each room a piece of history waiting to be uncovered. Gregory, too, had begun to open up. Once a closed book, he now shared stories of his childhood, his dreams and his fears. In return, Bella confided in him, sharing her longing for adventure, her passion for literature, and her desire to make a meaningful impact on the world. Their relationship had grown into something deeper, something neither of them had anticipated. They laughed together, debated ideas, explored the castle, and even dined together. Their evenings were filled with stimulating conversations, laughter, and shared silences that spoke volumes. The chemistry between them was palpable, a slow, burning fire that threatened to consume them both. Yet both were careful, treading a fine line between friendship and something more. The unspoken agreement, the promise, and the shadows of their respective pasts all lingered in the background, preventing them from fully giving in to their feelings. One evening, as a storm raged outside, Bella found herself alone in the castle's grand ballroom. The room was lit by twinkling chandeliers, and the sound of soft music filled the air. She twirled, lost in the beauty of the dance, her mind wandering to Gregory and the connection they'd formed. As she moved, she felt a presence, and turning, she found Gregory watching her, his eyes filled with intensity and longing. He approached, his movements graceful, his expression unreadable. "May I have this dance?" he asked, extending his hand. Without a word, Bella accepted, and they began to dance. The world around them seemed to fade away, leaving only the two of them locked in each other's gaze. The dance was a metaphor for their relationship, a delicate balance of trust, understanding, and unspoken desire. As they moved, Gregory's hand found its way to Bella's face, his thumb gently caressing her cheek. She looked up at him, her eyes wide with emotion, her heart pounding in her chest. "Gregory," she whispered, her voice filled with uncertainty. He silenced her with a gentle kiss, his lips soft against hers. It was a kiss filled with promise, with longing, with understanding. It was a kiss that spoke of a future, of a connection that went beyond mere physical attraction. When they finally parted, they stood there, breathless and lost in each other's eyes. The moment was electric, a turning point in their relationship that neither of them could deny. "I've never felt this way before, Bella," Gregory said, his voice filled with emotion. "I've tried to fight it, to ignore it, but I can't. I want you. Not just as a friend, but as something more. I want to explore this to see where it leads us." Bella looked at him, her mind reeling, her heart soaring. She knew that she felt the same way, that the connection between them was real and powerful. "I want that too, Gregory," she said, her voice filled with conviction. "But what about the promise? What about the reason I'm here?" Gregory's face clouded for a moment, a shadow of doubt crossing his features. "We'll deal with that," he said finally. "But right now, I want to focus on us, what we have. The rest will fall into place." And with that, they continued to dance, lost in each other, the promise and the complexities of their situation momentarily forgotten. They were two souls connected by fate, drawn together by something inexplicable, something magical. As the night wore on, they retreated to the library, where they talked, laughed, and planned their future. They knew that there were obstacles ahead, that the path wouldn't be easy, but they also knew that they'd found something rare, something worth fighting for. The dance of shadows had begun, a dance filled with passion, uncertainty, and hope, a dance that would lead them to the unknown, to a future filled with possibilities and dreams, the dance of love. As the days went on, Bella and Gregory's relationship deepened, each moment together revealing new layers of understanding and affection. They shared passion for art, literature, and history, bound them together, forging a connection that transcended mere attraction. But amidst the blossoming romance, the castle's secrets continued to beckon, drawing Bella into its hidden corners. Her curiosity was piqued by a locked door at the end of a long corridor, guarded by an intricate puzzle that seemed to whisper an invitation. Gregory was noticeably elusive about this room, his face clouding with a mixture of concern and something deeper every time Bella mentioned it. The mystery gnawed at her, tugging at her adventurous spirit, urging her to discover what lay behind the door. One afternoon, while Gregory was preoccupied with business, Bella's curiosity got the best of her. With a beating heart, she approached the door, her fingers tracing the puzzle, her mind working to unlock its secrets. It was a beautiful enigma, a challenge that teased and tempted. Finally, after hours of determined concentration, she heard the soft click of the mechanism and the door creaked open. Her breath caught in her throat as she peered inside, unsure of what she would find. The room was filled with artwork, portraits of men and women from different eras, each face marked by an unmistakable resemblance to Gregory. They were his ancestors, a lineage of people that bore his mark, his history captured on canvas. In the corner of the room, shrouded in shadow, stood an easel with a covered painting. A strange feeling overcame Bella as she approached it, her heart pounding with anticipation. With trembling hands, she lifted the cloth, revealing a stunning portrait of a young woman. The face was hauntingly familiar, her eyes filled with a longing that resonated deep within Bella's soul. She looked closer and gasped in shock. The portrait was of her. A whirlwind of emotions swirled within her, confusion and disbelief battling with a profound sense of connection. The painting was old, the brushstrokes masterful, the eyes filled with a wisdom and sadness that spoke to her very core. The door slammed shut, and she turned to find Gregory standing in the doorway, his face pale, his eyes filled with anguish. "Why did you come in here?" he asked, his voice filled with pain. "I asked you not to." Bella's voice trembled as she replied, "I needed to know, Gregory. I needed to understand. Who is she? Why does she look like me? Gregory's face crumbled, and he looked at her with a mixture of love and sorrow. She's been a curse in my mind since childhood. I haven't been able to get that face out of my mind. And then I saw you, her, in that video conference. I was scared and surprised. I had to meet you. I had to meet the woman who had haunted my mind for decades, the woman who was to free me from my pain. His words hung in the air, heavy and foreboding, as Bella struggled to comprehend what he was saying. The room seemed to close in on her. The walls whispered secrets, the faces in the portraits watching her with knowing eyes. They seemed to have a connection that went beyond mere coincidence, a destiny that had brought her to this place, to this man, to this moment. She looked at Gregory, his face filled with conflict, his eyes pleading for understanding. She knew then that their relationship had changed, that the path they were on was filled with challenges they could never have foreseen. But she also knew that their love was strong, that they were meant to be together, that they would face the challenges ahead hand in hand. With determination in her eyes, she took Gregory's hand and squeezed it reassuringly. "We'll face this and find understanding together," she said, her voice filled with conviction. "Whatever it is, we'll work it out. I love you, Gregory, and nothing will change that." He looked at her, his face softening, his eyes filled with gratitude. "I love you too, Bella. We'll do this together." They left the room, the door closing behind them. The secrets and the past locked away once more, but they both knew that the journey had only just begun, that the dance of love and destiny was far from over. The dance of shadows had become the dance of their lives, a dance filled with passion, courage, and the promise of a future filled with endless possibilities, a dance that would lead them to their destiny. Episode 4, Learning to See. Braemar Castle stood as a beacon of history and mystery, its shadowy halls echoing with the whispers of the past. Bella found herself drawn to its library, a sanctuary filled with ancient manuscripts, dusty tomes, and a plethora of stories that beckoned her into other worlds. Gregory seemed to share this passion, his eyes lighting up whenever literature was mentioned. Their days began to take on a pleasant routine. Mornings were spent exploring the gardens, afternoons devoted to reading and discussions about art, and evenings filled with music as Gregory revealed his talent at the piano. As they delved into their shared interests, Bella began to notice the layers of Gregory's personality peel away. The stern, distant man was slowly being replaced by someone more thoughtful, more human. She felt a connection growing, not just of minds, but something deeper. They would sit together in the drawing room, Gregory reading aloud from some beloved novel, his voice bringing the words to life. Bella would listen, enchanted, as characters and places leapt from the pages, all the while feeling the warmth of Gregory's presence beside her. One afternoon, Gregory surprised Bella by revealing a collection of sketches and paintings. She learned that he was quite a talented artist and his work was filled with emotion and depth. "Where did you learn to paint like this?" Bella asked, admiring a delicate landscape that seemed to glow within a light. Gregory's face softened, his eyes distant. "My mother taught me," he said, his voice filled with a bittersweet nostalgia. "She was an incredible artist. I used to sit with her for hours, watching her bring scenes to life on canvases." Bella reached out, touching his hand. She must have been a wonderful woman. He smiled a genuine, heartwarming smile that reached his eyes. She was. She believed in seeing the beauty in everything, no matter how hidden it might be. They spent the rest of the day sketching in the gardens, Gregory guiding Bella's hand, teaching her to see the world through an artist's eye. It was a magical experience, one that brought them closer together, opening doors to understanding and affection. As time progressed, so did their relationship. They discovered their shared love for classical music, spending evenings by the grand piano in the ballroom, Gregory playing masterpieces that resonated with Bella's soul. All the time Bella had now spent with Gregory, she began to see him not as the beast he was rumoured to be, but as a person, a friend, a kindred spirit. They were seeing each other not just with their eyes, but with their hearts. The walls were coming down, the barriers fading away, replaced by trust and a growing sense of companionship. As they stood together one evening, watching the sunset paint the sky with hues of gold and crimson, Bella felt a change in the air, a spark, a shift in their dynamic, a palpable sense that they're on the verge of something new, something beautiful. She turned to Gregory, her heart pounding, her eyes filled with a clarity she'd never felt before. She saw him, truly saw him, and in that moment she knew that their relationship was evolving into something more profound. They were no longer just friends. They were on the brink of a deep romance. They had already shared their love for each other, but had remained reserved, barely acting on their feelings, almost like a jack-in-a-box, ready to pop, standing on the edge of a new chapter in their lives, but never quite taking action, a chapter filled with the promise of love. The following day, under a sky flecked with wisps of white clouds, Bella found Gregory in his private study. He was deeply engrossed in a manuscript, his brow furrowed in concentration. His eyes, when he looked up, softened at her presence. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything important," Bella said, noting the papers strewn across his desk. Gregory's smile was warm, inviting. "Not at all. In fact, I was just thinking about our conversation yesterday. There's something I'd like to share with you." With curiosity, Bella followed Gregory as he led her to a hidden alcove. Behind a shelf filled with ancient texts lay a small room filled with pictures, letters, and mementos of a life gone by. "This is my memory room," he said, his voice soft, almost reverent. "I've never shown this to anyone before." Bella felt a thrill of privilege and a sense of intimacy as she stepped into the room. Gregory's past was laid bare here, a tangible connection to the man he had been and the experiences that had shaped him. They spent hours in that room, Gregory sharing the stories behind the photographs, the significance of the letters, and the emotions tied to the keepsakes. He spoke of his mother's love and his father's guidance, and the tragedy that had changed his life forever. Gregory's face became solemn as he led Bella to a specific photograph, a picture of a young boy with bright eyes, filled with curiosity and innocence. Bella sensed the shift in the room's atmosphere as Gregory began to recount the tale of the accident that had changed his life. "I was 13, he started, his voice tinged with melancholy. "My mother was my everything. She nurtured my love for literature, art, and music. We were inseparable." Bella listened intently, holding Gregory's scarred hand, feeling the weight of his past. One night, there was a fire, a terrible fire. Gregory's eyes darkened, reliving the horrified memory. "I tried to save her, but the flames were too fierce, the smoke too thick. I was pulled out, but she didn't make it." Bella's eyes welled with tears as she imagined the terror, the guilt, and the pain he must have felt. "I was left with these scars," Gregory continued, his voice cracking as he traced the marred skin on his face and hands. The physical recovery was excruciating. Surgeries, therapy, endless months confined to the hospital. But the psychological scars, they were even deeper. He went on to explain how he had retreated into himself, consumed by grief and self-loathing. His appearance became a constant reminder of the tragedy, the loss of his mother, and the loss of his own innocence. "It took me years to heal, Bella," Gregory said, his eyes meeting hers, filled with a raw honesty that shook her to the core. "I threw myself into my studies, my business. I built walls around my heart, afraid to let anyone see the real me, the broken me." "But you've changed now, haven't you?" Bella asked, her voice gentle, encouraging him to see his growth. "Yes, I've changed," Gregory admitted, a smile finally breaking through. "I've learned to see my scars as a part of me, not as a mark of failure, but as a symbol of survival. They've shaped me, made me strong, driven me to succeed." He went on to explain how his passion for preserving history, for honouring his mother's memory, had guided his career, his philanthropy, and his decision to open up his land for exploration. Bella's admiration for Gregory grew with each revelation. She saw not just the successful businessman, but the vulnerable boy, the resilient survivor, and the compassionate man. Their connection deepened that day, forged in the fire of shared understanding, empathy, and trust. Gregory had bared his soul, and Bella had seen him, truly seen him for who he was. "Thank you for sharing this with me," she whispered, her voice filled with empathy and affection. Gregory looked into her eyes, his own filled with a vulnerability she'd never seen before. "Thank you for seeing me, Bella, truly seeing me." The day wore on, and they left the room of memories. Their connection deepened, their understanding of each other enriched. They took a walk through the gardens, the beauty of nature reflecting the beauty of their burgeoning relationship. As evening approached, Gregory led Bella to the castle's grand ballroom. The room was aglow with soft candlelight, the chandeliers sparkling like a constellation of stars. "I thought we might dance," Gregory said, his eyes twinkling with a hint of mischief. Bella laughed, her heart light, her soul buoyed by the magic of the moment. "I'd love to." They danced, the music a gentle waltz that carried them across the room. Gregory's touch was gentle, his movements graceful, their bodies in perfect harmony. They swayed, twirled, and lost themselves in each other's eyes. The dance became a metaphor for their relationship, a dance of discovery, of opening up, of trust and tenderness. They were two souls entwined, moving together, learning each other's rhythms, and finding joy in the connection. The spark that ignited between them was now a flame, a gentle, glowing warmth that filled their hearts and souls. They were no longer just friends. They were something more, something deeper, something real. They danced until the night embraced them, the stars, their silent witnesses, the moon, their gentle guardian. They danced and they fell, not just in rhythm, but in love. For in each other's arms, they'd found not just companionship, but a love that was pure, a love that was true, a love that was theirs. And they finally came to a stop, their breaths mingling, their hearts beating as one. They knew that they had crossed a threshold. They were no longer just Bella and Gregory, two separate entities. They were Bella and Gregory, united by love, bound by trust, and destined for a future filled with the promise of happiness. The following days at Braemar Castle passed in a blissful whirlwind of shared activities and shared dreams. Bella's presence had breathed life into the old castle, and Gregory's laughter began to resonate within its walls. They discovered more common ground as they explored their mutual love for literature. The castle's library became a sanctuary where they spent hours discussing their favourite authors, analysing plot twists, and even debating the virtues of fictional characters. Bella was particularly enchanted by Gregory's vast collection of classic novels. She'd often find him engrossed in a book, his face illuminated by the soft glow of a reading lamp, and his scars all but forgotten as he delved into the pages. One afternoon, while they were poring over an ancient poetry anthology, Gregory looked up from the text and said, "You know, Bella, I've often thought about writing myself. The words, the worlds one can create, it's fascinating." Bella's eyes lit up at the thought. "You should write, Gregory. You have the soul of a poet, the mind of a philosopher. I'd love to read something penned by you." Gregory blushed, but promised he would give it a try. Art became another bonding activity, as they painted landscapes inspired by the stunning views from the castle windows. Gregory was pleasantly surprised by Bella's talent and felt a renewed connection to his artistic side as he watched her create beautiful canvases. "Your work is extraordinary, Bella," he praised one day, genuinely impressed. Bella, however, playfully teased, "You might be a business tycoon, but in the world of art, I have you beat." Their laughter filled the room, echoing through the corridors, a sign of the joy they'd brought into each other's lives. Music, too, played a crucial role in their growing connection. Gregory would play the grand piano in the drawing room, filling the air with melodic tunes, while Bella would listen entranced. One evening, as Gregory's fingers danced over the keys, playing a piece by Mozart, Bella suddenly joined in, her beautiful voice melding with the music in a mesmerizing duet. They made music together, their voices and souls intertwined, leaving them both breathless and amazed by their synergy. Days turned into nights, and nights into mornings, as time seemed to stand still within the castle walls. They found joy in the simplest of things, a shared cup of tea, a walk in the garden, a game of chess, and quiet moments spent in each other's company. But more than anything, they found joy in each other, in the love that was blossoming between them, a love nurtured by shared passions, intellectual stimulation, and emotional honesty. Gregory's scars, once a source of pain and shame, had become inconsequential. For Bella, they were a symbol of his strength, his resilience, his beauty. And Gregory, through Bella's eyes, had learned to see himself not as a beast, but as a man worthy of love. As the sun set one evening, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, they stood at the balcony, arms wrapped around each other, lost in thought. They'd come so far, opened up so much, and found a love so profound that it felt like a dream. But as Bella looked up at Gregory, she knew it wasn't a dream. It was real. It was them. It was love. The nights at Bremoran Castle were always filled with an enchanting stillness, but tonight was different. The castle seemed to be holding its breath, anticipating something extraordinary. Bella stood in front of a grand mirror, carefully adjusting the elegant gown that had once belonged to Gregory's mother. The silken fabric clung to her body, accentuating her grace, its colour a deep shade of emerald that made her eyes sparkle. Her hair was pinned up, tendrils escaping to frame her face, adding to her ethereal beauty. "You look breathtaking," Gregory's voice sounded from behind, his reflection appearing in the mirror as he stepped closer, wearing a tailored black tuxedo. Bella turned, her heart skipping a beat at the sight of him. "And you look dashing, Gregory. It's as if we've stepped into another era." He smiled, extending his hand. "Shall we dance, m'lady?" Taking his hand, Bella allowed herself to be led to the castle's grand ballroom. The room was illuminated with soft, golden light, chandeliers casting a warm glow and candles flickering in sconces along the walls. The polished wooden floor gleamed, and the tall windows offered a view of the moonlit garden outside. A soft melody began to play, emanating from hidden speakers, filling the room with sweet, inviting music. Gregory pulled Bella into his arms, their bodies fitting together seamlessly, and they began to dance. The world around them seemed to fade away as they moved in perfect harmony, lost in each other's eyes. As they waltzed around the ballroom, Gregory's touch gentle and assured, Bella's laughter joyous and free. It was as if they were characters from a fairy tale dancing in their own enchanted world. Gregory's eyes never left Bella's, a depth of emotion in them that made her heart flutter. "You know, Bella," he whispered, "I never thought I could feel this way again. You've awakened something in me, something beautiful." Bella's eyes whirled with tears as she looked at the man who'd become her everything. "And you've shown me that true love is not just a figment of imagination. It's real, Gregory, and it's us." They continued to dance, their bodies swaying, their hearts beating as one. They danced through the memories, through the joy and the pain, through the love that had grown between them. They danced as if they had all the time in the world, as if they were the only two people who existed. The music enveloped them, their love embraced them, and the castle stood witness to a magical moment that neither would ever forget. As the final notes of the music faded away, Gregory pulled Bella closer, his lips finding hers in a tender, passionate kiss that sealed their love, a love that had blossomed in the unlikeliest of places between two souls who'd found each other by fate's design. They stood there long after the music had stopped, wrapped in each other's arms, knowing that something had changed. What had started as a friendship had turned into a romance, a connection that went beyond mere attraction. It was deep. It was true. It was love. They parted from their enchanting dance, eyes locked in a connection that transcended the physical. Gregory reached for Bella's hand, intertwining their fingers, his smile tender and inviting. "Would you care to join me for a walk? The grounds are particularly beautiful at this time of night." Bella's eyes twinkled, mirroring the stars that were now making their appearance in the deepening twilight. "I'd love to," she replied. And together they made their way out of the castle and into the gentle embrace of the night. The castle grounds were a living demonstration of nature's artistry, sculpted over centuries into a breathtaking tapestry of manicured gardens, majestic trees, and meandering pathways. Gregory and Bella wandered through this nocturnal paradise, hands clasped, hearts in unison, their conversation flowing as effortlessly as the stream that gurgled alongside the path. The air was crisp, filled with the fragrance of blooming flowers, the distant rustle of leaves, and the soft murmur of nocturnal creatures. Gregory stopped by a secluded bench overlooking a tranquil lake, the water's surface reflecting the shimmering brilliance of the cosmos above. The scene was one of serenity and perfection, but Gregory's attention was solely on the woman beside him. He noticed a slight shiver in Bella's frame, the night's chill beginning to make its presence felt. Swiftly he removed his tuxedo jacket, placing it around Bella's shoulders with a gentle touch that sent a thrill down her spine. "Thank you," she whispered, leaning into the warmth of his body. They continued to stroll, the beauty of the surroundings only eclipsed by the profound connection they felt. Gregory led Bella to the water's edge, the gentle lapping of the waves, a soothing background to their conversation. "Bella, I never thought I could find someone who understands me the way you do," Gregory confessed, his voice laden with emotion. "You've brought joy and light into my life, and I can't imagine my world without you." Bella's eyes welled with tears as she gazed into Gregory's eyes, seeing the sincerity and love that radiated from them. "Gregory, you've shown me what true love is, and I want you to know that I love you with all my heart. I want to be with you always." They stood there by the lake, the moon and stars witnessing their love, wrapped in each other's embrace, souls united in the most profound bond. It was a moment of deep connection, a moment that would be etched in their memories forever. "Come on, it's getting cold, let's get back inside," Gregory finally said, his arm finding its way around Bella's waist, pulling her close as they made their way back to the warmth of the castle. As they walked, Bella tucked in against Gregory's body once again, feeling the strength and comfort that only he could provide. They returned to the castle, their steps light, their hearts full, knowing that they'd found in each other a love that would endure, a love that would grow, a love that was meant to be. They had found each other, and they were home. The following morning was serene and golden, a gentle dawn spreading across Bremoran Castle. bathing it in the soft hues of a new beginning. The castle, once a symbol of Gregory's isolation, had transformed into a place of love and connection, thanks to the woman who'd captured his heart. Bella awoke to find Gregory already up, standing by the window, lost in thought. The morning light danced in his hair, highlighting the contours of his face. She knew that behind those contemplative eyes lay a world of dreams and aspirations, now shared with her. "What are you thinking about?" Bella asked, her voice tender as she put an arm around Gregory. Gregory turned, his eyes brightening as he took in the sight of her. "I was thinking about our future, about all the things we can do together. You've awakened a part of me that I thought was lost forever. I feel the same way. You've changed my life, Gregory. I never knew love could be like this, so profound, so complete." He kissed her forehead, pulling her close. "And this is just the beginning. We have our whole lives ahead of us." They spent the day exploring the castle and its grounds, but this time with a newfound intimacy and joy. They visited the library, sharing their favourite books and authors, exchanging thoughts and ideas with a connection that went beyond mere words. They strolled through the gardens, hand in hand, laughing and talking, finding joy in each other's presence. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, Gregory led Bella to a secluded spot overlooking the valley. The view was breathtaking, the land stretching out in a patchwork of colours, the setting sun casting a golden glow that seemed to touch everything with magic. "Bella," Gregory began, his voice serious but full of love, "I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I know this might seem sudden, but when something feels right, there's no reason to wait." He took her hand, looking deep into her eyes. "Bella, will you marry me?" The world seemed to stand still as Bella absorbed his words, her heart pounding in her chest. The love in his eyes was unmistakable, the sincerity in his voice undeniable. Tears welled in her eyes as she nodded, unable to speak, her emotions overwhelming her. "Yes," she finally whispered, her voice filled with joy and love. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." They embraced, lost in each other, as the sun dipped below the horizon, signalling the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. They were united, their love unbreakable, their future bright. That night, they danced once again in the ballroom, but this time with the knowledge that they were dancing into a future together. The castle, once a place of mystery and solitude, had become a sanctuary of love and connection. As Bella retired to their room and was getting ready for bed, she noticed a hidden compartment in Gregory's study. With curiosity, she opened it to find a collection of letters, photographs, and a small, mysterious artifact. Though she felt a strange sense of foreboding, she couldn't discern the significance of these items. "What have you found?" Gregory asked, entering the room. Bella quickly closed the compartment, a slight unease creeping over her. "Nothing," she said, smiling, though her eyes betrayed her curiosity. "Just admiring your collection of books." Gregory seemed to accept her explanation, but as they retired to their room, the glow of the moon illuminating their path, Bella couldn't shake the nagging feeling that she'd stumbled upon something significant. The joy of the day was tinged with a subtle shadow, an unspoken question that lingered in the air. Episode 5. The Thorn. The blissful memories of the proposal still lingered, the glittering ring on Bella's finger, a sign of the love that had blossomed within the walls of Bremoran Castle. Gregory's eyes sparkled with newfound joy, a connection they both felt deep in their souls. They were in love, and everything felt perfect. But sometimes perfection can be a fragile thing, a delicate balance easily upset. The morning dawned, crisp and clear at Bremoran Castle. Bella was curious about what was in that secret compartment in Gregory's study. While alone, she decided to take a look. Among the letters contained in the compartment, one letter caught her eye. It was addressed to "My dearest father," and the handwriting was unmistakably Gregory's. Unable to contain her curiosity, she began to read. "Father, I can no longer bear the burden of this secret. The fire, it was my fault. I started the fire that killed Mother. I'm the reason she's gone." The letter dropped from Bella's hands, her heart pounding in her chest. Gregory had started the fire that killed his mother, the very fire that had scarred him both physically and emotionally. How could he keep something like that from her? She felt a mixture of shock, betrayal, and deep sadness. Gregory had trusted her with so much. They had shared so many intimate moments, and yet he'd withheld this, the darkest part of his past. A lie by omission was still a lie. Tears welled in her eyes as she stumbled back, the walls of the castle closing in on her. She needed air. She needed to think. As she hurried down the corridor, her thoughts were a whirlwind. Did she even know Gregory at all? What else was he hiding? Why did he start the fire? The beautiful grounds of Bremoran Castle, once a haven, now felt like a trap. She was scared about what Gregory might be capable of if he could kill his own mother. She felt lost, adrift in a sea of uncertainty. What did this mean for their relationship? Could she ever trust him again? "I've found the letter." Bella's voice trembled as she confronted Gregory, the joy of the previous night replaced by anger and sadness. "I know you killed your mother." Gregory's heart sank. He had wanted to keep this part of his past hidden, locked away. He took the letter from her, his eyes avoiding her. "It's nothing you need to worry about," he said, his voice controlled but tinged with a hint of sadness. "Nothing I need to worry about." Bella's voice rose, a mixture of hurt and anger in her eyes. "Gregory, we're engaged. There shouldn't be secrets between us, especially not about something like this." "It's a part of my past that's better left buried," Gregory snapped, his temper flaring. "I didn't want to upset you." "But keeping secrets from me is more upsetting," Bella replied, tears welling in her eyes. "I thought we were past this." The argument escalated, both of them saying things they would later regret. The castle's walls, once filled with warmth and laughter, seemed to close in around them. The love they had found now overshadowed by distrust and misunderstanding. "I need some time," Bella finally said, her voice breaking. "I need to go back to London." Gregory's face paled, his anger replaced by a sinking realization of what he might lose. But his pride kept him from begging her to stay, or explaining what had happened. Instead, he watched in silence as Bella packed her bags, tears in her eyes. "I love you," she whispered, her voice catching as she looked at him one last time before leaving the castle. "But I need to understand what this means for us." And with that, she was gone, leaving Gregory standing alone in the vast emptiness of Bremoran Castle, a gaping hole where his heart used to be. He wandered through the castle's halls, the memories of their time together haunting him. The ballroom where they'd danced, the library where they'd shared their thoughts, the garden where they'd walked hand in hand, all now felt like distant dreams. In London, Bella found herself in the familiarity of her flat, yet everything felt different. Her friends tried to comfort her, but their words felt hollow. Her heart ached for Gregory, but the shadow of the secret he'd kept loomed large. She looked out of her window, the bustling streets of London, a stark contrast to the serenity of Bremoran Castle. But amidst the noise and chaos, all she could hear was the echo of Gregory's voice, the touch of his hand, and the love they had shared. As night fell, she curled up with a book, trying to lose herself in its pages. But the words blurred, and all she could think of were the happier times, the promises they'd made, and the love they'd found. And as tears streamed down her face, she knew that something precious had been lost. A thorn had found its way into their love, and its wound was deep. Bella's heart was aching. The love she felt was too painful to cling to, too treacherous to trust. Her friends, sensing her despair, tried to pull her back into the normalcy of their London lives. Invitations were sent, dinners arranged, but Bella found herself turning them down, one after the other. She needed to think, to understand, to heal, and she couldn't do that with the noise and chatter of the city's social whirlwind. She spent hours at the window, watching the rain as it weaved its patterns on the glass, the droplets trailing down like her tears. It was in these silent hours that she wrestled with her love for Gregory, a love that had been so pure and genuine, so full of promise. But it had been tainted, twisted into something she didn't recognize. How could she continue to love a man who'd kept such a secret from her? How could she trust him again, knowing that he had lied? The thought of his betrayal gnawed at her, consuming her from within, and she found herself trying to hate him, to cast him out of her heart, as he had cast doubt into her soul. Her grandmother called, her voice filled with worry. "Bella, darling, you sound so distant. Why don't you come over for dinner? It will do you good." Bella wanted to refuse, to bury herself in her sorrow, but something in her grandmother's voice touched her, pulling her from her self-imposed exile. The dinner was a quiet affair, filled with glances and unspoken questions. Bella's grandparents were careful not to pry, respecting her need for space, but the concern in their eyes was palpable, and Bella found herself breaking down, confessing her feelings, her confusion, her hurt. "I want to hate him, Nan," she sobbed, her face buried in her grandmother's shoulder. "I want to stop loving him, but I can't. I don't know how." Her grandmother held her, stroking her hair, her voice gentle and soothing. "Love isn't something you can turn off, Bella. It's a part of you, a part of who you are. You can't force yourself to hate someone you love, no matter how much they've hurt you." "But he lied to me. He kept something so important from me. How can I ever trust him again?" Her grandmother was silent for a moment, her eyes distant, thoughtful. "Trust is like a piece of paper," she said finally. Once it's crumpled, it can never be perfect again. But it doesn't mean it can't be used. You have to decide if the love you feel is strong enough to rebuild that trust, to smooth out the wrinkles and make something beautiful again. Bella's heart ached at her grandmother's words, the truth in them resonating deep within her. She knew that her love for Gregory was real, that it was a part of her that she couldn't deny. But the hurt was real too, and the path to forgiveness seemed impossible to tread. As she lay in bed that night, her mind filled with conflicting emotions, she knew that the struggle was far from over. She would have to face her love, to confront it, to understand it, and she would have to decide if it was strong enough to heal the wounds that had been inflicted, to bridge the chasm that had opened between them. Her dreams were haunted by Gregory's face, his touch, his voice, and she woke with a sense of loss, a longing that she couldn't shake. Love was a thorn, she realized, a beautiful flower with a hidden sting, and she was caught unable to move forward, unable to let go. Braemorn Castle stood silent, its echoing halls filled with the ghost of love lost. The servants tiptoed around, their voices hushed, their faces etched with concern. Their master had become a shadow, his eyes hollow, his face drawn. The joy and warmth that had filled the castle since Bella's arrival had vanished, replaced by a chill that no fire could dispel. Gregory roamed the castle like a restless spirit, the rooms filled with memories that taunted him, reminding him of what he had lost. Bella's laughter still rang in his ears, her smile still danced in his mind, but they were phantoms now, fleeting and untouchable. He retreated to his study, the room where he had once found solace in his books and his thoughts. But even here Bella's presence lingered. The chair where she used to sit, the books she used to read, they were like daggers to his heart, and he found himself avoiding them, focusing instead on his anger, his resentment. He convinced himself that Bella had been looking for an excuse to leave, that she had never truly loved him. How could she? He was a beast, scarred and flawed, a man who had hidden his true self from her. She had seen the ugliness in him, the darkness, and she had fled. Who could love someone like me? He whispered to himself, his voice filled with self-loathing. She was right to leave. I'm a monster. He avoided the mirror, unable to face his own reflection, unable to confront the truth of his appearance. The scars that marred his face were a constant reminder of his imperfections, of the man he used to be. They were the mark of the beast, and he knew that they had driven Bella away. His mind was a turmoil, his thoughts a battlefield. He wanted to hate her, to despise her for leaving him, but he couldn't. Her image was too strong, her memory too sweet. He found himself longing for her, craving her touch, her voice, her love. He recalled their conversations, their shared dreams, the way she had looked at him, the way she had made him feel. She had seen beyond his scars, beyond his flaws, and she had loved him, or so he thought. The doubt gnawed at him, consuming him. Had she ever truly loved him? Had she ever seen beyond the beast? Or had she merely been playing a game, biding her time, waiting for the right moment to leave? His heart ached with the uncertainty, the confusion. He wanted to reach out to her, to hear her voice, to feel her love again, but he knew that he couldn't. The bridge had been burned, the trust shattered. There was no going back. As the days turned into weeks, and the castle became a prison, a place of torment, Gregory's anger turned inward, his self-loathing growing with each passing day. He avoided others, withdrawing into himself, building walls that no one could penetrate. The garden, once a place of joy and of love, became a place of sorrow and regret. The flowers that had bloomed with Bella's touch now withered, their petals falling like tears. The bench where they'd sat, the path where they'd walked, they're all reminders of a love that had died, a dream that had been shattered. And through it all, Gregory's heart continued to ache, a wound that would not heal, a love that would not die. He knew that he had lost her, that he had pushed her away, that he had destroyed something beautiful and pure, but he couldn't let go. He couldn't forget. Bella's love was a thorn in his heart, a pain that he couldn't escape, a memory that he couldn't erase. And as the winter settled in, the castle became a tomb, a place of mourning, a monument to a love that had been, and a man who had been broken. Bella's London apartment felt alien and cold after the warmth and grandeur of Bremoran Castle. Every time she closed her eyes, memories of happier times with Gregory washed over her like a bittersweet tide. Sometimes she could still feel the touch of his hand, the sound of his laughter, and the way he looked at her, as if she were the only person in the world. The days were a struggle, filled with the mundane tasks of life that seemed trivial compared to the whirlwind romance she'd experienced. Friends tried to distract her, but nothing could erase the emptiness that yawned inside her, where Gregory's love used to reside. One evening, as the melancholy dusk settled, Bella found herself sitting with her father in the living room. The gentle warmth of his presence was comforting, and the room was filled with the familiar scent of old books and his favourite coffee. "Bella," her father said, his voice gentle, "you've been so quiet. I know something's troubling you. Talk to me, my dear." Tears welled in Bella's eyes as she looked at her father, the understanding in his gaze too much to bear. "Oh, Daddy, I've tried to forget him, I've tried to hate him, but I can't. I still love Gregory, and it hurts so much." Her father reached out, taking her hand in his. "Love is a complicated thing, my dear. It's not something you can just turn off. It takes time." "But he lied to me, Daddy. He kept something from me, and I can't understand why." Her father's face softened, his eyes filled with wisdom and compassion. "People keep secrets sometimes, not because they want to deceive, but because they can't bear to hurt those they love. Perhaps he was trying to protect you in some way." "But how can I trust him again?" Bella's voice was desperate, her pain raw and palpable. Her father sighed, looking deep into her eyes. "Trust is a fragile thing, Bella, but it's also something that can be rebuilt. You have to ask yourself what you want, what you feel in your heart, and then make a decision. I'll support you no matter what." The room fell into silence, filled only with the soft ticking of the clock and the distant hum of the city. Bella's mind drifted back to the days at Bremoran Castle, to the walks in the garden, The candle-lit dinners, the stolen kisses, and the promises whispered in the dark. "Daddy," she finally said, her voice soft and thoughtful, "I want to believe in love again. I want to believe in him, but I don't know if I can." Her father squeezed her hand, his voice gentle but firm. "Then take your time, Bella. Heal, reflect, and find the answers within yourself. Your heart will guide you. And remember, my dear, I'm always here for you." They sat together in the quiet comfort of each other's company, the weight of the conversation lingering, but also a sense of hope, a glimmer of understanding. The past was filled with beautiful memories, but the future was still unwritten, still waiting to be shaped by Bella's choices. Her father's wisdom had given her something to ponder, a new perspective to consider. Perhaps love was worth fighting for. Perhaps trust could be rebuilt. The answers were not easy, but they were there, hidden in her heart, waiting to be discovered. As the night deepened, Bella felt a renewed sense of strength, a determination to face her feelings and make a decision. She knew that the path ahead was uncertain, filled with challenges and doubts. But she also knew that she was not alone. Her father's love and support were her anchors, her guiding lights, and somewhere, deep inside her, the love for Gregory still burned, a flame that refused to die, a love that was still alive, still waiting for a chance to bloom again. Bella's night was filled with restless dreams, haunting visions of Gregory's suffering. In her dreams, she saw him wandering the lonely halls of Bremoran Castle, his face pale, his eyes filled with a deep despair that sent shivers down her spine. He looked broken, defeated, his once lively spirit extinguished. The dream was so vivid that Bella woke up in a cold sweat, her heart pounding, the image of Gregory's tormented face etched into her mind. She spent the day in a daze, trying to shake off the unsettling feelings the dream had stirred within her. She knew in her heart that it was just a manifestation of her own fears and desires, but something about it felt eerily real. Her friends, noticing her distraction, persuaded her to go out with them that evening. "It'll take your mind off things," they promised, and so Bella found herself in the glittering world of London nightlife, surrounded by laughter, music, and dancing. But the more she tried to lose herself in the vibrant energy of the city, the more she found herself drawn back to her memories of Gregory. She saw glimpses of him in every couple that walked hand in hand, in every loving gaze exchanged between lovers. The echoes of their time together were everywhere, inescapable reminders of what she had lost. As the night wore on, Bella and her friends found themselves in a bustling nightclub, the air filled with the pulsating beat of the music and the intoxicating mix of perfumes. It was the perfect place to forget, to lose oneself in the rhythm and the lights. But even here, Bella's thoughts were consumed by Gregory. Then, in a moment that seemed to stop time, a stranger approached their table. He was handsome, confident, his eyes fixed on Bella as he extended his hand and asked, "Would you like to dance?" The words were simple, but they sent Bella spiraling back to another time, another place, to a dance floor bathed in soft candlelight, and Gregory's strong arms holding her close. The sensations were so powerful, so overwhelming that Bella's breath caught in her throat, and tears welled in her eyes. "I love him," she blurted out, turning to her friends, her voice filled with certainty, her face radiant with revelation. The man stood there, hand still extended, a look of confusion on his face. But Bella was lost in her own world, the realization of her love for Gregory washing over her like a tidal wave. "I love him," she repeated, her voice filled with wonder, with joy, with a love that could no longer be denied. "I love Gregory." Her friends stared at her, a mixture of shock and understanding in their eyes. They knew that this was the moment, the turning point, the awakening of something profound and beautiful. The nightclub, the music, the stranger with his outstretched hand, all faded into the background. All that mattered now was the love that burned in Bella's heart, a love that had been tested, challenged, and had emerged stronger, more resilient. Episode 6. Beauty and the Love Unbound. The club's lights danced and throbbed as Bella's friends shrieked and clapped, caught in the whirlwind of Bella's revelation. "I love him. I love Gregory," she repeated, her voice wavering with conviction. The man who had asked her to dance stood awkwardly, his hand still outstretched, but Bella's eyes were far away, lost in the wilds of Scotland and the warmth of Gregory's gaze. One of her friends, Emily, grabbed her hand, her eyes gleaming. "Then what are you doing here, Bella? You've got to go to him." The words rang in Bella's ears, igniting a flame that had been smouldering since she left Bremoran Castle. It was time to face her true feelings. The next morning, Bella's determination only strengthened. She packed her bags, her hands trembling with anticipation and fear. Would Gregory still want her after what had happened? Would he even be at the castle? Her friends gathered around her, excitement bubbling. "We're coming with you," Emily declared. Bella shook her head, her heart swelling with gratitude. "No, I need to do this alone, but thank you. Thank you all." With hugs and words of encouragement, they saw her off, and she boarded the train to Scotland. The journey was a blur, her thoughts consumed by memories of Gregory's touch, his smile, the way he looked at her as if she were the only woman in the world. As the train rolled through the breathtaking Scottish landscapes, Bella couldn't help but feel a connection to this place, a connection that had been forged through love and understanding. Gregory had shown her a side of herself she never knew existed, and she couldn't turn her back on that. Finally, the train pulled into the station. Her heart pounded as she disembarked, her legs shaky. She hired a car to take her to the castle, and as they wound their way through the lush countryside, Bella felt both excitement and trepidation. The castle loomed into view, its ancient walls standing witness to time and history. It looked as majestic and enigmatic as ever, but now it also felt like home. The car pulled up at the grand entrance, and Bella thanked the driver, her hands clammy with anticipation. She took a deep breath, feeling the crisp Scottish air fill her lungs, and made her way towards the doors of the castle. Gregory's face flashed in her mind, and she knew without a doubt that she was doing the right thing. Her heart was here with him in Bremoran Castle. With a nervous heart, Bella reached the grand doors of Bremoran Castle and knocked, the sound echoing through the stillness. A frown creased her brow when no one answered. The castle felt different, emptier, devoid of life. Summoning her courage, she pushed the heavy doors open, her footsteps echoing in the vast entry hall. "Gregory," she called out, her voice barely more than a whisper. No answer. The silence enveloped her, making her skin prickle with unease. She wandered through the corridors, calling out for Gregory, for any of the staff, but her voice was met with echoes and a profound silence that weighed heavily on her heart. She could feel the absence of warmth that had once filled these halls when she was here before. Panic began to gnaw at her insides as she continued her search. What had happened here? Where was everyone? Driven by a sudden instinct, she found herself heading towards the garden, the place where she and Gregory had shared so many beautiful moments. As she reached the garden, her heart skipped a beat. There, by the lake, lay Gregory, collapsed and unconscious, his face pale and drawn. "Gregory," she cried, rushing to his side. His skin was cold to the touch, and his breathing was shallow. Terror threatened to overwhelm her, but she pushed it away, focusing on the man she loved. She managed to lift him, struggling with his weight, and half dragged, half carried him back to the castle. With trembling hands, she made him comfortable on a sofa in the living room, her mind racing. She tended to him, bringing blankets, water, and anything else she thought might help. Hours turned into days as Bella nursed Gregory back to health. Slowly but surely, life returned to his eyes and strength to his body. His first smile, weak and full of gratitude, sent a thrill through Bella's heart. She knew then that a love was strong enough to conquer anything. Gregory's recovery was a reflection of their relationship, fragile at first but growing stronger each day. They spent hours talking, catching up and rediscovering each other. Gregory explained how he'd let the staff go, consumed by his misery and despair, unable to face the world without Bella. "You brought me back, Bella," he whispered one night, his eyes shining with sincerity. "I was lost, but you found me. You saved me." His eyes welled with tears as she kissed him, feeling a connection that went beyond mere words. They were two souls intertwined, bound by love and understanding. And they continued to heal. The castle, too, seemed to come back to life, filled once more with warmth and light. It was as if their love had breathed new life into everything around them. The castle, once a symbol of Gregory's isolation and pain, had become a haven for their love, a place where they could be together, unbound by the world's judgments and expectations. Bella knew that they were ready to face the future, together and stronger than ever, and she knew that this was just the beginning of their beautiful journey. The days flowed into weeks as Bella and Gregory continued to heal and reconnect. They spent countless hours in each other's company, sharing long walks through the gardens, intimate dinners by candlelight, and evenings in front of the fire. The connection they had was deepening, becoming something even more profound. One night, as they were seated in the library, surrounded by the wisdom of ages and the comforting smell of old books, Gregory looked into Bella's eyes and said, "There's something I need to tell you." Bella felt a pang of anxiety, but met his gaze. "What is it, Gregory?" He took her hand, his eyes filled with a mix of fear and determination. "I've never told anyone this, but I want you to know everything about me. The night of the fire, the one that took my mother's life and disfigured me, as you read in the letter to my father, it wasn't an accident." Bella's breath caught in her throat, but she urged him to continue. "I was playing with matches like like a foolish child. I didn't mean for anything to happen, but the fire spread so quickly. Tears welled in his eyes, his voice breaking. My father never forgave me. I was disowned, cast out, left to deal with the guilt and the scars alone. Bella's heart ached for the lonely, scared boy he'd been, and she reached out to comfort him. Gregory, that was a terrible accident. You were just a child. It's not your fault. He shook his head, tears spilling over. I've carried this guilt with me for so long, Bella. You've shown me love and understanding, but I need you to know the truth. Bella pulled him into a warm embrace, whispering soothing words. I love you, Gregory, scars and all. What happened in the past doesn't change how I feel about you. They sat like that for a while, wrapped in each other's warmth, letting the truth settle between them. It was a significant step, a moment of raw honesty that brought them even closer together. When Gregory was ready, Bella took his hand and said, Now it's my turn to confess. He looked at her with concern, but she smiled reassuringly. I should have never left you in the way I did. I was scared and confused, but I should have stayed and talked to you. My leaving was a mistake, one that I'll regret forever. Can you forgive me? He kissed her forehead, his voice gentle. There's nothing to forgive, Bella. We were both lost, but we found our way back to each other. That's all that matters. With the weight of their confessions lifted, they began to plan for the future. They decided that the castle needed to come back to life, filled with the laughter and warmth it once held. Bella took it upon herself to call back the staff, speaking to each one personally, explaining that Gregory needed them, that the castle needed them. The response was overwhelming, and within days the castle was buzzing with activity again. As the staff returned, the castle's rooms were aired, the gardens tended to, and the once cold and lonely place began to radiate warmth and life. It was a new beginning, a fresh start for them all. Gregory and Bella stood on the balcony one evening, looking out over their domain, knowing that they had weathered the storm and come out stronger. Their love was unbound, free from the shackles of the past, ready to face whatever the future might bring. In each other's arms, they knew that they'd found their forever, a love that would endure, grow and flourish. In the beautiful castle that had become a symbol of their hope, love and understanding. Spring had begun to breathe life back into the world around Bremoran Castle, and it was as though nature itself was conspiring to bless Bella and Gregory's love. The gardens bloomed with vibrant colours, and the scent of newly blossomed flowers filled the air. The couple walked hand in hand through their reborn kingdom, their hearts light with joy and anticipation. I've been thinking, Gregory said, squeezing Bella's hand. I don't want to wait any longer. I want to marry you, and I want to do it now. Bella looked up into his eyes, her heart swelling with happiness. Yes, she whispered, tears of joy in her eyes. Yes, I will marry you. And so the whirlwind began. Bella called her family and friends, sharing the joyous news and sending out invitations. The castle's staff busied themselves with preparations, their excitement palpable. Gregory, however, had a more sombre task. He stood before the fireplace, a letter in hand, his heart heavy. It was time to face his past, to reach out to the father who had disowned him. Are you sure about this? Bella asked gently. placing a comforting hand on his arm. He nodded, his eyes determined. I need to do this. Not just for me, but for us. I want my family to be a part of our lives. With Bella's support, Gregory penned a heartfelt letter to his father, sharing his love for Bella and their plans to marry. He invited his father to the wedding, expressing a desire to mend the broken relationship. With a deep breath and a kiss from Bella, he sent off the letter, hoping for a new beginning. The days leading up to the wedding were a flurry of activity. Bella's friends arrived, filling the castle with laughter and joy. They helped her choose a simple yet elegant dress, turning the castle's great hall into a wedding wonderland. Gregory's family, too, began to arrive. Cousins, aunts and uncles, all warmly welcomed by Bella and the castle's staff. The response from Gregory's father was the one they anxiously awaited. Finally, the letter arrived. Gregory opened it with trembling hands, Bella by his side. His father had accepted the invitation. More than that, he expressed remorse for the past and a longing to reconnect with his son. The letter was filled with love and hope, a promise of new beginnings. Tears of relief and joy flowed freely, and the couple embraced, knowing that they had overcome yet another obstacle. The night before the wedding, Gregory and Bella stood where he had proposed months before. They looked out over the view, both lost in thought. I can't believe it's really happening, Bella said, leaning into Gregory's embrace. He kissed the top of her head. We've come so far, Bella. Tomorrow is just the beginning of the rest of our lives. They stood there, two souls bound by love and understanding, ready to face their future together. Their love was a beacon, guiding them through the darkness of the past, leading them towards a future filled with hope, joy, and endless possibilities. The morning of the wedding dawned bright and clear, a perfect day for two people to begin their lives together. The castle grounds buzzed with excitement, a sense of joy and anticipation filling every room. Bella's friends and family had already become an essential part of the castle's life, their laughter ringing through the halls as they helped with the final preparations. Gregory's wider family, including his father, added to the warmth and happiness that suffused Bremoran Castle. Bella, looking radiant in her wedding dress, stood in her room, surrounded by her closest friends. Her grandmother held her hand, tears of joy in her eyes. You look beautiful, my darling. Your mother would be so proud, she whispered, embracing her granddaughter. Thank you, Nan, Bella replied, her voice filled with emotion. I've never been so happy. The ceremony was held in the castle's stunning garden, the vibrant flowers and lush greenery providing a fairy tale setting. Gregory, looking dapper and composed, waited at the altar, his eyes fixed on the path that would soon bring Bella to him. As the music began, all eyes turned to see Bella, arm in arm with her father, walking down the petal-strewn aisle. The sight of her took Gregory's breath away, and he could only stare, captivated by her beauty and grace. The vows were heartfelt, each word filled with love and promise. The couple exchanged rings, the simple bands symbolizing their unbreakable bond. As they were pronounced husband and wife, they shared a tender kiss, sealing their love before their friends and family. The reception was a joyous affair, with music, dancing, and a feast that would be remembered for years to come. The castle's staff, who had become part of Bella and Gregory's extended family, joined in the celebration, their happiness evident in every smile. Gregory's father, once distant and stern, was now warm and affectionate, his love for his son fully restored. The past was forgiven, replaced by a newfound understanding and respect. As the night wore on, friends and family began to say their goodbyes, promising to visit often and imploring the newlyweds not to be strangers. Bella and Gregory, hand in hand, waved them off, their hearts full of gratitude and love. Finally, the castle was quiet once again, the echoes of laughter fading into the night. The couple retreated to their favourite spot by the lake, the soft glow of the moon reflecting on the water. "We did it," Gregory said, pulling Bella close. "We did it," she agreed, resting her head on his shoulder. "I never thought I could be this happy." Gregory kissed her softly. "We have our whole lives ahead of us, Bella, and I promise to make every moment as beautiful as this one." They sat there, wrapped in each other's arms, the future stretching out before them, filled with endless possibilities. They had found their love, tamed their fears, and built a home together. The castle, once a place of isolation and despair, was now a symbol of their love, a sanctuary that would nurture their dreams. As the first light of dawn began to break, they stood and walked back to the castle, ready to embark on their new adventure. Together they would face whatever came their way, knowing that their love was unbreakable, their bond unshakable. They had each other, and that was all they needed. They had found their happily ever after. As you gently, deeply and comfortably drift and float peacefully, relaxed, asleep into slumberland.